Welcome to another episode of the CPG Guys podcast. Our co-hosts, Sri Rajagopalan and Peter V.S. Bond, explore how brands and retailers engage with consumers online, in-store, and everywhere in between. And now, here are Sri and Peter.
Welcome to all our listeners of the CPG Guys. And this is another episode featuring a special host and guest with me. But before we get to it, a reminder to all our listeners, you can find all our content for the CPG Guys at linktree/CPG Guys. That's linktr.ee/CPG Guys. And while you're at it, I would request you to visit our Apple CPG podcast, also known as tinyurl.com/Apple CPG podcast. And we have crossed the 20 episode threshold. We want to thank each one of you for following us on LinkedIn as our organic followership grows every single day. And we want to thank you for your ratings, reviews, and the likes on the Apple CPG podcast. And of course, your feedback is always welcome. I also want to let you know that you did vote for the next set of upcoming topics. And thank you for the close to 100 people that did vote. And profitability and unit economics and e-commerce P&L economics is the number one topic that was voted on, and you can find a 5-part series on that coming soon. For more details on what those parts are and what we'll be discussing, refer to a LinkedIn post made earlier in the month of late August, early September. And without further ado, we're going to dive into this episode. About a month ago, Peter and I had put out an episode which was about a mid-year report on how 2020 has progressed so far, and which retailers have excelled, which capabilities have really toned their muscle up, and who is winning. And today what we're going to focus on is we're going to have a balance of year outlook with so much at stake, balance of year in retail, especially with the holidays, new announcements such as Amazon Fresh, Walmart Plus, Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Is it going to be a radically different shopping season balance of year? This week, we have a special surprise for you. Our regular host, Peter, is on a personal time off. And we have, as our co-host, welcoming back for the second time, the man himself, the CPG practitioner of Kellogg fame, of Mondelez fame, and Edge by Essential, one that I always go to when I need data, insights, want to learn more about the industry, and just build my knowledge and then execute. The man himself, Chris Perry. Say hello and introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you so much, Sri, for having me back. And like I said, I had big shoes to fill last time when I stepped in to step in your stead. And obviously I've got equally as big shoes to step in for Peter, but excited to be here and share my passion and nerdity with you guys on this top, all of these topics, as we look at the end of the year and the kickoff to 2021.
Chris, of course, is also my partner in consulting projects that we do. So it's a pleasure to have you on board as we continue to shape and transform the industry so brands can deliver quality product at value to the consumer. So as we said, Chris, we've got a bumper Q4 that is being planned for across the board. Traditionally, Black Friday, there would be lines outside stores. People would line up on Thursday nights. That is, of course, started slowing down the last few years as people take to online shopping more. So without further ado, why don't we get into this special edition of what's the forecast for the balance of the year and what to look forward to in CPG retail by jumping right into the holidays and Black Friday. What's on your mind, Chris? How do you think this year's holiday and Black Friday are going to go, especially since Walmart has already announced the stores are going to be closed on Thanksgiving, which is a new norm?
So we've got a lot of major retailers who've decided not to be open and try to push the boundaries of in-store, access during the Thanksgiving and even Black Friday traditional holidays, mainly to kind of signal to the market that we can't have that many people in the store and we don't want to underserve on our promise and our experience while also putting people at risk, both their employees and the shoppers. So not surprising that there is a lot of push away from the in-store shopping season, which by nature is still going to leave open the natural demand around the holidays for shopping for others, buying for yourself, that will still come from that critical Cyber 5 holiday weekend and the weeks before and after. But now it's going to be online, being driven by all these players who used to rest on the opportunity for it to be in store as well. So I think the hard part is trying to balance ultimately, the election will have an impact. There's financial, realities and implications of COVID and job loss and where people are on their discretionary spending. So we might see a little bit of a balance where we would have expected really, really high sales had this been done absent the economic impact and potential, dominoes that come. But at the same time, people are stuck at home or they're choosing to stay at home. We don't know if COVID will kind of resurge again because of schools starting again and the companies coming back online. And so I think it's going to be really interesting to see what is the dampening of the shopper's personal financial situation, but paired with the industry trying to make up for what they would have gotten in store by pushing online over the holiday period. And, again, and a lot more people, there's a lot of new categories that have gotten a lot of exposure because especially, bicycles and outdoor, gardening and all these things that people are really refocusing on home life and fun. And so you have to think in the wintertime for a lot of the US, we're going to be stuck inside because of weather, right? So what's going to become important to us is we're stuck inside. There's probably going to be a lot more desire to improve the options I have at home from a personal entertainment and fulfillment standpoint. So I hate to say it depends, but we've got one really massive thing pushing demand and folk channeling that demand online. And then we've also got this other kind of slightly underlying Jenga block being pulled out that is how comfortable do people feel spending right now when they don't know what their future looks like.
So Chris, what I clearly hear you say is there's obviously an economic dark cloud halo of job loss, income loss, uncertainty about the future, which is clearly a dark cloud over, is this going to be a bumper holiday sales season period? But, many companies depend on Q4, especially skin, beauty, toys, we can go on and on, travel and leisure, etc. But there's a second part that we probably should discuss as well, which is assuming the dark cloud persists, or if you're lucky enough and it doesn't because magically a vaccine does indeed come out, which is quite possible. Is this the year, though, due to hygiene concerns, the actual holiday shopping habit permanently inflexes towards online versus offline?
That's a great question. I think a lot of shopping will shift online permanently. To be fair, every single year, holiday shopping, because of the sheer volume per person and the opportunity to find all these options in the virtual aisle, whether it's on Amazon or beyond, it ultimately, you always saw Q4 was the catapult of e-commerce penetration for the next year. This year is going to get surged even further, no matter how much is truly spent because of financial concerns and that halo. But I do think that this is going to fundamentally jump the baseline. I don't want to stake it, but 2x what it would have been before minimum, right? The key though is there are going to be categories when we get past this. I don't want to say there's a normal, but when we get past this and there is a vaccine and stores are back, and the economy is reopened again, the store of the future is going to have evolved, and there's still going to be a need for experiential and showrooming, and people are going to want to go out and almost touch and feel some of this stuff in certain categories, not because they want to buy it there, but because they want to see it there, right? And it'll be part of just entertainment, right? Is to be able to see things that you might want or that might complement your life or your self-fulfillment, but you may still buy online or buy in store to be fulfilled online, right? So I think, again, the store isn't going to go away. It's just that the role of that store changes. One other thing I did want to throw out, just on the topic of holidays and Black Friday, we still don't exactly know how Prime Day is going to affect this. So the fact that Prime Day is now not half a year away and may or may not be really close, because who knows exactly what date, how quickly they're going to push this back or forward. Arguably, Amazon could make Prime Day Cyber 5 if they really wanted to, they already are, but let's be honest. They could say, like, kind of like Alibaba and Singles Day, they could just go ahead and own a holiday that wasn't all theirs, but now becomes all theirs. The other thing is that Prime Day.
That's a key statement, Chris, because if should that happen, I just anticipate the Amazon shift from offline retail to actually get even much more deeper than a Prime Day, because it's actually gets associated with a holiday.
Well, exactly. And it's who's to say that they don't have 2 Prime Days a year, right? There's a smaller one in the summer and a bigger one. But the point being is that they could go ahead and just claim they built some history here. So now they just extend their brand over onto the Cyber 5. And now it's just Prime Day is just synonymous, Cyber 5 is synonymous with Prime Day. That could be one thing, but knowing in past years how many retailers were trying to like, crawl forward and own as much of the early holiday period as they could so that they got the share of dollars before you got to the Cyber 5 weekend. Prime Day happening a month or two plus before really does allow them to like claim some of that share, and then it leaves a lot less for everyone else later, because then you'll still want to go to Amazon later to see if there's another deal, but they will have claimed, I'm going to make 25% of the demand up front for them in a way that they hadn't before. So that's one interesting element too. One other thing I've been seeing, and this isn't necessarily on some of the mass retailer sites, but a lot of like the apparel retailers and D2C sites, I've started seeing, Klarna and Affirm and some of these like installment plan partners have been partnering with these, and this isn't all new, but this idea of like, I thought this was kind of an interesting element of when we used to go to the store, we put stuff on layaway, right? Like, so I'm going to claim the product, but I don't get it yet, right? But Klarna or Affirm or some of these other partners allow me to buy the product and split arguably lower priced items as well into multiple installment payments so I can afford it over time, but get the immediacy of the want now. And so
I almost feel, Chris, that model was invented by QVC like 20 years ago. Like, why does it not exist in online? Like, everybody should be doing it, right?
It's not new. It's new to a lot of platforms that have made that offering.
Like,
and
why does it not exist in e-com? Like, it makes no sense. Like, if you're doing the layaway in store, why not extend it online? And this is the year that I think that inflection, like you say, will happen.
No, exactly. And I mean, so it's interesting to see those payment plans, and I'm sure some of the mass retailers will make their own offering if they don't already have something like that, again, so that people can get the product, give them the money, and then they're kind of locked into their ecosystem for a little bit longer, but that gives them a relationship to cultivate for future products, right? So it'll be really interesting to see. I think you're going to see a lot of that installment payment opportunity capitalized on and really experienced by the consumer in a much bigger way during this holiday season. Because if I am concerned about my cash flow, that's a way for me to still give my kids the best holiday ever, but not have to worry about not being able to pay it off right now.
And this is why we asked Chris Perry to be our guest host, and we hope you'll come back again and again, because we get these little nuggets that I actually did not really cross my head that this might be the year that the installment plan methodology flips over from offline to online, especially with holidays in mind. So I guess our net assessment and verdict on the holiday season is A, don't expect a bumper overall holiday season at the total US level of showing massive growth versus last year and year over year, given the dark economic cloud, but do anticipate a massive swing to digital and e-commerce based ecosystems to really thrive and grow. You briefly mentioned apparel when we just closed out the holiday segment right there. So that leads me to a precursor holiday, Halloween.
Halloween, and this is actually something my wife and I were talking about, because I don't like horror movies. I don't like to be scared. It's just not the kind of thrill I enjoy. I like to laugh and have fun. But I do love Halloween because I always enjoyed, I was a drama nerd, and I was in musicals and plays, and I always liked, portraying other characters. And so I'm sad because Halloween already was basically a dampened holiday because, there was this general concern for community safety and kids safety being out. I mean, when you go back to like our parents' age, if they did Halloween, there was like, you could be out all night. No one thought twice about it. But now, there's been concern about that. Now we've got the issue is if we're going through all this craziness around hybrid schedules for school and study from home, no one's going to want cross-pollinating germs in every neighborhood in America, right? So the problem is Halloween, I'm not going to say isn't going to happen, but it's probably not going to happen the way it has.
What if I flip the germ concern and say, isn't it the one holiday where everyone wears a mask?
Oh, well, true, actually. That's it may not be the costume you were hoping for, but everyone gets a free costume. Or not a free one. You might just already have it on hand. But no, it's what's interesting though is I haven't even heard, like when you mentioned that we might talk about Halloween. I thought I haven't even heard about Halloween. But what's funny is Costco Australia, I saw on the news, is getting backlash because they have Christmas stuff out already. Like in August, they started. So they had a lot of people backlashing because it was like, thanks, but no thanks. And I know this sounds silly, but even back to school in June, and I'm not blasting them, I'm just saying in June, I saw Target, Walmart ads on television for back to school. We just got out of school. And it was pretty rocky with the virtual learning and the last thing I need to worry about is going back to school on June 17th when my kids just got out of school. And I appreciate that you're trying to own the season, but there needed to be that nuance. And so what was later evident in commercials from leading retailers was this, like, we're ready when you need us. But that was really the important message, is not, let me shove another season in your face because I'm trying to claim my fair share of the pie. It's more of a, hey guys, when you're ready, we've got this online and offline, however you need it, right? Like that.
But
that
Chris,
the message.
The thing I'm thinking of for Halloween, first of all, I'll take Christmas in September if a genuine vaccine is announced. I'll feel like Santa Claus came and visited planet Earth for real, right? So I'll take that. But what the part about Halloween that confuses me a little bit is, I'm going to give you my Frito-Lay Day example. For us at Frito, having a successful Super Bowl meant we're going to have a successful year. Not only was it early in the season, but most importantly, a certain fractional percent of our business was anchored around the Super Bowl event, and being successful at that meant a certain percent of our business for the year was already set in that time frame. Now, if you're a candy or confectionery company or in the costume mask business, and this is the year that people are not going to buy and distribute candy by the bulk. Of course, a little while ago in jest, I did say, hey, isn't it the festival everyone wears a mask? So I do, and people like to be outdoors trick-or-treating. So I actually think this is a year where a lot of that is going to happen. But I worry about the candy and confectionery and the apparel business, because number one, for the candy and confectionery business, a week or 2 weeks before Halloween leading up to it is quite a sizable chunk of their business, no pun intended, like a big bite out of their business. If you're not going to be in the business of distributing candy, because nobody, I think, will want to take candy from a stranger's house by knocking on their door this year. So you're going to significant fewer houses for trick-or-treating, and the whole candy ecosystem is going to be significantly smaller. Isn't that a big concern? And even that, if you want to procure some candy, which is a fraction of what you normally do, aren't you going to gravitate to do it online this year, and then offline candy, confectionery, good luck?
That's a good question. To your point, I don't think Halloween as a holiday is like gone. It might be the way you did Halloween is different. So it might be more like at school in the hybrid format with 50% capacity. They do something where they've done all the normal, glove, they've created little goodie bags for the kids. And actually, to be honest, for a confection brand, that would potentially be one of the many ways I'd look to bridge that holiday in the future. So I was the one that is actually partner with schools and communities to do it, to provide. I know it's not the same thing as trick-or-treating per se, but it might be that there's still a special thing where you come in your costume and you get the goodie bag, and maybe there's some other activities that are socially distanced until we have a vaccine. But that would be kind of the way to counter that, is to try to go at scale as best you can through school districts and whatnot to provide that value add.
If I'm a parent though, Chris, am I not thinking, where did that nugget come from? Where did that little candy bar come from? where did that little toffee come from? Ooh, I don't want to touch it. Like, again, I know this is going to depend on which state you're at and the level of infection and things of that nature. On one hand, I feel there's this moment of explosive growth for Halloween because we're going to be outdoors. It's still 7 weeks away. We might have the magical vaccine that we've all been anticipating. But on the other hand, I also worry it's a few days before elections. There's a lot of noise in our economy and in the country. I think our net verdict and assessment on Halloween is expect Halloween as a holiday to not go away, or anyone who kind of feels that Halloween is going to be a damn squib this year. What you and I are concurring is that is not true at all. Just expect and anticipate that it's going to be a different form of Halloween. And depending on the category you do business, you might actually see some sort of either a minor shrink or a massive shrink. I do really worry with concern about the candy and confectionery business, and in a city like where I live in New York, that extends its reach much beyond candy and confectionery into pastries, cakes, partying, things of that nature. But I'm going to jump now into an area which I think Chris is gaining in a big way, and that is food and bev. There's a lot of at-home cooking. I know you and I are experimenting with cooking ourselves and different forms of dieting and eating and things of that nature. But given there's not been a choice for outdoor dining and on-premise dining in restaurants, cooking might have had a permanent inflection in terms of food and bev and groceries, etc. And one big winner there has been Instacart, not just through fundraising, but through virtually now getting a penetration. They were a tiny fractional, less than 5% awareness in all of US from a household perspective. And now I think that number is like 5x or more, could be even larger. I don't want to misquote here, but it's massive compared to what it was. Instacart, balance of year, in the future, here to stay. Do this the year consumers are like, oh my God, this is just easy. And I can pick the store I want to shop from. And I get my loyalty points. Gotching.
I think Instacart is here to stay, as pending any sort of acquisition that we don't know about, right? Which doesn't mean it would be gone, but in the same way that Target bought Shipt changed from a perception standpoint, and obviously had some limitations on who it could be with or who was attracted to it as a partner, right? But pending an acquisition, or potentially if there was a major COVID outbreak and there wasn't a vaccine, or the vaccine wasn't for that strain and it limited store access, and obviously then the issue isn't I want individual people who can be controlled on a smaller scale to go to people's homes. It's like they might not be able to get into a store at all themselves either. Pending any sort of major disruption, I think Instacart is definitely here to stay for the short to midterm. Will they need to evolve? Probably. But I think the challenge is, this last mile delivery issue is costly for everyone, even an Amazon, even a Walmart, who have different assets at their discretion, right? Whether it's massive fulfillment center infrastructure and delivery networks, or whether it's 4,300 different stores around the country, not to mention other fulfillment opportunities that they may have. That's the challenge, right? So this Instacart partnership helps split the P&L off. Yes, it adds some complications, but it splits the P&L and the ownership.
Chris, I love that if I'm a brand. And I love that because there's rumors now in the industry that most major retailers will be asking for a certain percent of the co-op as an e-com fee. And for a brand, virtually every brand is measured on a brand P&L. What we love as a brand about Instacart is, as you have just pointed out, the split P&L, where Instacart has already incorporated for the last mile logistics fee of delivering into the price that you pay for the product on a fractional per SKU product detail page level. 100%. So it's already in, and the consumer, when they buy the product, are paying up for that versus versus paying EDLP or lower price points and then having to pay a shipping fee. For that, if I'm a brand, why, Chris, would I not want to create a marriage with Instacart? Because it's a winning model for both Instacart and for the brand. Do you see any risks there?
Well, so I mean, the risk is obviously if Instacart went away or became tied to one retailer, so I'll be provocative. If Walmart bought Instacart. I'm just, you know, comes with a whole slew of potential challenges or whatever. And obviously all the partners don't go away immediately, but let's just say similar to Target and Shipt, it kind of became more of a singular, you know, duo. There are some other partners of Shipt, but let's just pretend. You know, then the good thing is Instacart's still attached to one of the biggest retailers that most of us serve, you know, as brands. So it wouldn't be unappealing anymore. But what's very appealing about Instacart right now, again, barring some major acquisition or change to that model, is that it's essentially like now, you know, if Amazon is the Google of product search, you know, arguably Instacart is another Google of grocery search, right? So it gives you a chance to build your brand irrespective of the retailers that are in business to serve. And it gives you another way to drive demand that then builds some potential leverage that you might have with those partners to get you more in-store, you know, placement or, you know, fulfillment placement as that progresses. So I think, I mean, this is definitely not a platform that can be ignored. The hard part for a lot of brands is, yes, Instacart is the split P&L, and it's actually kind of the ideal because now consumers are paying for the convenience. But the problem is Instacart doesn't really live anywhere on our P&Ls because it's not a retailer. So, you know, how much, and because they don't share the retailer data per their policy, you know, how much sits against Food Lion versus Walmart versus, you know, the 5 other partners that I do business with that use Instacart, it's hard to know where to allocate the spend. Do I work with them nationally?
If you're a brand, Chris, isn't that awesome? Because you've already made the sale in this example to Food Lion, and it's really a partnership between Food Lion and Instacart, and the only opportunity for a brand is really on the media mix side, which is below the line. So if you're on a commercial sales team, you're like, hallelujah.
Yeah, no. I mean, there's lots of benefits. So, I mean, it's more the Instacart, you know, if we've had a challenge as companies organizing around e-com in general, even though most of those were legitimate, you know, teased out retailer platforms to whom we sell goods the same traditional way. Instacart's very different though, because it's going through the partners we sell it, but then we're recording it separately. So it's more about like aligning teams against common, you know, goals and KPIs and helping them see that we're all in this together, driving the same ultimate growth. But it's a no-brainer. Everyone should be doing it for the foreseeable future. The challenge is the how they get to do it may differ by company based on their journey and organization and goals and P&L, P&L management and that kind of thing.
I think as we move to the next topic here, therefore, our verdict or assessment on Instacart is it's here to stay, it's here to grow, and brands especially are going to be in love with it. So brands are going to feed that, and Instacart, this is your moment. I see Instacart as the Uber of services in fast-moving consumer goods. So it's here to stay and grow. So watch out for that, which leads me to another part of fulfillment. We just talked about home delivery, click and collect. Clearly, we're seeing large retailers really flex their muscles on click and collect and upping everything from customer service around that, getting better at meeting order thresholds. You know, I still find for majority of my transactions where I do click and collect, and I'm not referring to just food and bev retailers, I'm referring to even home-based retailers. And I still find, Chris, that when I buy something online, the email confirming my order is late, my pickup is late. Usually the hours that are promised are never, the threshold is rarely met. When I go to the store, it's still a little chaotic, although I am seeing a massive improvement in where the click and collect pickup is located in store. You know, especially Walmart is doing an amazing job around having curbside pickup outside the store, especially in suburban and rural locations. And I personally feel click and collect is going to be a big part of the future of e-commerce shopping and fulfillment in the future, because again, it's a win for brands, except there's a rumor in the industry, doesn't matter which retailer is, it's irrelevant, that an e-commerce fee is in the way. So if you had to pick between Instacart, click and collect, you're a brand, the retailer obviously has to do what they got to do. If you're a brand, which one does your vote go with?
So if I think to the consumer, over time, sometimes it will take different forces to accelerate change, right? But the consumer is always going to follow the path of least resistance. now they have to get to a point where the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same, right? So like, if I've always gone to the store and it's no skin off my nose, and it's like, and yeah, that like it costs a little more to do, and I don't want to build my order the first time. There are all these barriers to buying online grocery, to switch for the first time, or even buying one-offs on Amazon, a little different because it's spear phishing. But like, when I have to do it every week, like there's that little bit of like change aversion. So people kept doing this thing until they didn't have a choice, and COVID didn't really give us a choice. And so like curbside pickup was every retailer's theoretical go-to, because we can do that, right? We could do that whether we have partnerships or capabilities for delivery or not. But I look at like curbside pickup to me is like a gateway drug, because it's like, wow, this was so convenient. Why do I even go to the store still? Like as I took out, I used to go to the store because it was part of like my routine, and I go in and I shop for my family. And now that I can't, and I just pick it up, like, okay, so I'm still doing that chore for my family. I'm doing my duty, but like, now I'm working more because, there's been studies that show that work from home is actually making people 15 to 20% more productive, because they can spend more time. The day never ends. Like, that's not good, but that's a reality. So you've got like, ultimately there's going to be people like, why am I driving out just to the store now that I'm not doing this whole involved trip? It's just this trip to pick up. And the challenge is the retailer, this isn't just consumers alone. The retailer looks at this as like, well, I can be more competitive and win share of requirements if I offer more options. And the options I'm going to try to push are the more convenient ones, theoretically, that just bring it to your home. And hey, you know what? I can take the hit right now and make this free, right? Well, if I make it free, my competitor tries to make it free, right? So everyone eats the cost up front, and it accelerates people into what they ultimately would have likely gone to. Because I know, Shri, I mean, we're all in this together. Like, we used to be a have and have not society. I'm not saying we aren't still a little bit, but now that you can get anything you want pretty much within hours, whether you drive or have it delivered, right? The point is now it's like, it's have done or have it done, and it's all about your time, right? Time, experiences, spending had outpaced in previous years, material spending. And so there is this thing about what I do is more important than what I have, because anybody can have the same stuff, but not everybody can do the same stuff and have the same experiences. So there's this saving my time, again, for family, which now has a lot more requirements because we have to do childcare and education at home now. So I just think it's a long way of saying, I think that home delivery is where I'd put my money, but only in the short term, because what we didn't touch about with Instacart is retailers are partnering with Instacart right now because it's the Uber, again, they split the P&L. It's owned by two different parties. It enables them to do it at scale without having to own the capability. But the long term is like, how do I solve last mile altogether, right? How do I put the product in your house so that you have it when you need it? How do I predictively send it to you before you knew you needed it, right? Is it a vending machine in your home? Is it autonomous, RoboMart in California that brings produce to your door? Is it drones that can send stuff to you in 30 minutes at a fraction of the cost, right? Like, all this has to develop. But my point is, retailers are going to be looking for capabilities or partners that may not be human-led partners in the future. And when I even think of like Walmart's in-home delivery, which right now obviously is probably challenged by COVID, but in-home delivery plus their patent from 2017 of an in-home consignment pantry could be pretty powerful. What if I didn't own the product that's in my house until I use it, and someone just comes in every once in a while to restock based on what I buy and use? It's pretty powerful. Like, maybe not nationally penetrated all at once, but that solves the last mile.
I feel Amazon kind of started that with Dash, but the form and format of how it was executed via a button for every ASIN wasn't a scalable model whatsoever, because just too many buttons. So
and their smart shelf from Dash, like the new Dash, which actually is brought into their like Dash cart technology and the Amazon Go shelf technology, right? But it's more for businesses right now. But it's almost the shelf is weighted to tells Amazon to order something because the products that were designated for that shelf are now at a certain weight level and need to be replenished. So what if my fridge was outfitted with weights and sensors? What if my pantry could be smartened so that it knew that I was out of green beans and Tostitos? So the point is, again, that's not going to be in everyone's home by 2025. But my point is, that's the kind of stuff that's going to start making the overall mix of costs for retailers shift, because more and more of their consumers may be more profitable for them, and they actually have their own technologies embedded in their house. So what if I become a Walmart house? So it's not really lucrative for me to be an Amazon shopper, because Walmart does everything for me in my own home, in my community, right? So this is where retailers could really leapfrog each other if they can win that last mile.
And Chris, isn't there a saying that in the United States, there's a Walmart within 5 miles of virtually anybody? Maybe it may not be a remote part of Alaska close to Russia up there, but
right.
virtually like a Walmart within 5 minutes of every household in the US, which means you're used to going to a Walmart. And now if you can order it, everything's ready for you. You get that email within a couple hours, and then you can just go to a curbside pickup location and it's brought to your vehicle. Isn't that like a massive time saver and a time, like we've all learned in the last 6 months, how awesome it is when you don't have to commute and you just get time back in your life. Like the value of time, the price premium on time has just gone up. And I think people are now going to really put a price premium on their time, even in jobs that they take in their lives and things that they do in their life. And I think for that reason, the verdict and assessment on this one, we've already talked Instacart is friendly for brand P&Ls. So it's a yes, absolutely. But I feel when it comes to click and collect, even though the item economics of click and collect are very much TBD and may actually turn out to be more expensive than the store fulfillment model, depending on if they're getting picked from a shelf, you're just adding on the economic costs and the burden of the entire fulfillment ecosystem. But I also feel some portion of the sale from the store is permanently now inflexed into the click and collect model. The good news, the store manager is still getting credit for the sale. It's still very much part of that retailer. And when the giant Walmart flexes in that direction, I think the brands understand that click and collect is here to stay. And for that reason, I strongly feel brands will follow. And I think it's a question of over the course of the next year, figuring out how to work with the item economics. Is it shopper marketing that actually now transitions into a little bit more of click and collect? Like what happens is TBD, but I think there is no choice. So that, Chris, obviously results in the next one, which is if we look at balance of the year, we talked about home delivery, we talked about click and collect, two big holiday seasons, two big events, the holiday season starting around early November to the end of the year, and then Halloween. What is the role of the store for the rest of this year?
That's a good question. I think for right now, without a solution to COVID, and assuming no new outbreak, the store, and this may be partial sample size of one, but the store in my life is a quick trip, immediate. Like I can't, I need it right now, and it's easier than waiting 2 days or whatever, till tomorrow. So arguably convenience, whether it's inconvenient channels or not. Availability. So to be fair, you can't get some categories online right now because they've been shopped out, and the supply chain has been disrupted so much that every time they get back in stock, they can't get. So like cleaning supplies, disinfection supplies, as this new worry about the resurge and schools getting back, So, but there is supply of a lot of this stuff sitting in the store. So if you need it, you can go and get it. It's just, it's not conveniently delivered to you right now. I would also say where there's health and safety in mind, there is a little bit, arguably a little bit of retail therapy happening. So there is a little bit of that experiential role where it's just like, I just want to get out of my house. I don't want to expose anyone. I'm not trying to be, irresponsible, but I just want to go somewhere and feel like a human again and get out of my house and feel like what I used to do when I went to stores. And so there has been a little bit of that in just talking to friends and knowing how there is a need for the store. There are people that are actively shopping the store, just the normal way. They're just doing it in a more safety oriented fashion. But there is also my wife and I, our kids were with their in-laws for a few days, and we actually had a date night, and we went into a store. It felt like normal life again, just a little bit, And so I think that's the role now. I mean, in the future, it's going to be, again, experiential. There'll be services. I mean, when you think of Walmart and their health centers, I mean, there's going to be service-oriented, experience-oriented, food and dining-oriented, even with some caveats. again, fulfillment oriented, showroom oriented. So, I mean, there's going to be a number of different elements that stores long term are able to serve for the consumer. But right now it's more about like access, immediacy, and like just getting out of my house.
So we'll keep this verdict and assessment short and sweet. So balance of the year, don't expect the store recovery to be aha or amazing. I think we all know no magic here, that e-com and digital is leading the way for 2020. But the in-store model, through our collective experiences we already have experienced and know, was, is, and will be the largest part of most scale brands as retail today, tomorrow, yesterday, day after. So it'll be a huge mistake to kind of ignore that or not plan well for it go forward. That said, what I think is a legitimate conversation that needs to be had, and analytics and data needs to be examined, is I think the whole notion of anniversarying events and promotion should be thrown in the garbage. All trade should be zero-based budgets. We are in a new store normal. I think things that should be considered are trip duration. Why does a person go in store? Why do they spend an hour? Are they spending an hour? Do they spend 10 minutes? Was the grocery format of shopping, which was an hour long in a basket of $125, going to stay that way? Or is it now an $80 occasion and what's in your role? Similarly, is the end cap playing the same role that it did with faster trips, fewer trips, things of that nature, as well as your gondola, shelf slotting, things of that nature? Are they still worth the same price premium or ROI or as they were in the past, with the trips being shorter and fewer eyeballs passing through? But make no mistake, the store business model is here to stay, and words such as apocalypse, etc., are just wrong in the industry that are tossed around. So let's go to the next one.
The word disruption is correct. It has been
absolutely,
but that doesn't mean it's gone. It just needs to change, right?
Absolutely. So, to me, when an end cap doesn't look the same anymore, you've already disrupted the model.
Exactly.
So that said, big announcement this week: Walmart Plus. Thoughts?
Finally, yes. No. So here's the thing: key stats, and I don't want to misrepresent it, because if they have secret things they have told other people, I wasn't one of their special shoppers, but it's less expensive annually than Prime, right? They're trying to be competitive. Free delivery, over a $35 threshold, which is great. 5-cent fuel discounts at their partner gas stations. To be honest, I don't know if I don't live in an area with one of their partner gas stations, but I think that would need to expand. So that was, because arguably that gets into like Costco membership value, but that's good. Access to the scan and go technology on the app for members so they can avoid the lines, and it removes a little bit of the friction in the store is great. So for those who keep choosing to go to the store, they still get some benefits. That's awesome. The thing that's important to me, and they openly said that there are more perks coming and more benefits, and that's good. I realize they don't have all of that on day one, but I think they need something much bolder that ingrains this in as like truly competitive advantage, because arguably they're going up against Costco, Sam's Club, and Amazon as like, this is what a membership looks like, and these are the values. Amazon gave you media, right? So I got lots of content available to me. Walmart has kind of pursued a different path, in their ecosystem on owning media and content. The key, though, is what they have, which is really interesting, is health insurance and health services. So what if I could, and arguably living better lives, saving more, living better, like how do I tie this to health insurance, where if I'm a member, I'm not saying for $98 a year I get free health insurance, but my point is I get discounted rates, I get different tie-ins, because we know Amazon's building out their whole ecosystem with PillPack and Amazon Care, and they're, right now it's like focused on employees, but they're going to blow it out later on as well. So we just need something different and bold, but not different and irrelevant. We need something that like ties to their ecosystem, but something that would really ingrain me into the Walmart franchise for long term. And health is definitely access to healthcare and affordable prescriptions and medicines and services is really, I think, a way you could do that and really stand out on top of media and other things you might add later.
So I think we'll keep this one simple. What the verdict and assessment on this one is, it's a minor dent today in the world of Prime, but I think competition is good. It was necessary. This was long overdue, but this is Walmart. So we do anticipate and we sincerely hope there's going to be more benefits, and this is going to be a major play in the future. So I personally am going to sign up for Walmart Plus. I think this is awesome. I hope you are too, Chris. And it was much needed in the industry from a consumer perspective and for the Walmart shopper. So I'm eagerly looking forward to it. On the converse, our last outlook for today as we close out this episode, the same week, Amazon announced the opening of the Fresh store in Los Angeles. To me, Chris, this is a serious entry into food and bev. This is not Amazon Fresh being delivered to your home. You know, there were constant substitutions that were happening. Finding a slot was very complicated. You have to plan well in advance. Prices that consumers are paying were all, value was all over the place. Confusion around integrating Prime Now into it and picking from Whole Foods. This appears with the technology and features a serious play into food and bev retail. Of course, it's one store. Where do you think this goes?
So this is what's interesting to me. Now, don't get me wrong. There's some really unique things in this, you know, the Dash cart where, you know, it's essentially Amazon Go, just walk out technology, but in basket size, right? So it's in your cart. You walk through a special lane and if you're signed in, you immediately check out and pay, and you don't have to wait in line. Like, so very thoughtful to the COVID reality we're in. You know, there's Echo, you know, Alexa oriented capabilities there as well. But what's funny about this is, even though there's some Amazon specific technology and proprietary names involved here, this is just like, as with anything with Amazon, they just removed friction from the normal experience. This isn't like the Jetsons and I went to like year 2050, 2100, and I'm in a different world and we fly around. Like, they just remove little bits of friction from the experience. So it's a store with all owned capabilities omni-channelly, right? I've got national brands. I've got private brands and exclusive brands, right? That are high value, high demand. I've got, you know, the lowest prices, right? I've got easy ways to shop, whether I want to be in line or not, right? I have easy navigation, right? So in my mind, it's like, it's a perfect example of Amazon just doing what they do best, which is just, I looked at a problem, I solved a problem, and I did it just 5% to 10% better than everybody else was doing it.
Bingo.
Not maybe doing it at scale yet, but they just threw the gauntlet, and now everyone's going to have to up their game and follow, right? So they design the game and everyone else plays the game. One other thing I was going to mention, though, and this was one caveat for brands, I think that's really important. When you think about like Amazon books, like the prices that are displayed are what they actually are selling online, which theoretically is whatever competitive price is being offered in market. So low prices, yes, is a great overall promise, but I'm just going to, if I'm Kellogg's Fruit Loops and there's some sort of price matching issue in the market going on, I'm picking on Kellogg's just as a brand, but then that price may be what shows up on shelf, right? Now, the good thing is I'm not going to get crapped out, like can't realize a profit and delisted immediately, because the economics of coming in and buying my basket as a consumer or being built as a basket may be different. But the problem is going to be that is going to translate to the store, whereas the retail brick and mortar environment doesn't change their prices that rapidly today in store, typically, right? And so I think that this has a lot of, it's different implications for brands in store from a profitability and a brand equity standpoint. But in real time, if I don't solve my value chain leakages, I could have like really significant pricing issues at shelf very, very quickly, dynamically. You know, it won't be that all cereal boxes of the same size are $4.99. It'll be, well, this one's $4.99 because nobody messed with it, but this one's $2.97, right? And like, it'll be very interesting to see, you know, because of a rollback at Walmart, Amazon matches it, right? So, and it's at their discretion because pricing is at their discretion, right? So that'll be really interesting to see where this goes.
I think as we wrap up this episode, the simple assessment on this one is, you know, I see it as Amazon's, and I think you concur, Chris, that this is Amazon's serious entry into everyday food and bev in the store model for scale. Not the best timing given COVID, but with all the tech-assisted products that you just gave examples of in what you just spoke of for the last few minutes, which perfectly mirror themselves up to shorter trips, smaller trips. Is the end cap relevant or not anymore? Does the cart become your display and feature ecosystem? Amazon is actually seems planned for all of that. So I do anticipate, assuming this is highly successful in Los Angeles, a quick rollout in the next few years of this as an Amazon's entry. So when you have a fun time and you speak topics that you love, 45 minutes just fly by. I want to thank Chris Perry for having joined us yet again a second time. And I hope, Chris, you'll come back in Q4 so we can have an episode just dedicated to the Amazon Fresh Store and Walmart Plus as these two play out over the course of the next couple months. And if you want to find Chris Perry, you can easily find him on LinkedIn. He's active. You can see insights from him virtually every day. Just drop him a connect message and chat with him at Chris Perry on LinkedIn. And we want to remind all our viewers, you can find the CPG Guys for more content like this at linktree/CPG Guys or linktr.ee/CPG Guys. Check out the podcast of this episode and all our other episodes on the Apple Podcast if you can go to the Apple Podcast and search for the CPG Guys, or you can also find us at tinyurl.com/Apple CPG Podcast. And I'll close this episode out by saying, if you listen to our conversation on the holidays, what's upcoming, the new models for store retail, click and collect, home delivery, things of that nature, the most important capability in e-commerce balance of the year, unequivocally, is the quality of your digital shelf, because that's where your product has been found. And that is the close of this episode. Thank you for listening in. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
The content in this podcast episode is provided for general informational purposes only. By listening to our episode, you understand that no information contained in this episode should be construed as advice from CPG Guys LLC or the individual author, hosts, or guests, nor is it intended to be a substitute for research on any subject matter. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by CPG Guys LLC. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The views expressed by CPG Guys LLC do not represent the views of their employers or the entity they represent. CPG Guys LLC expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, or inability to use this podcast or the information we present in this podcast.